The single mother and the wedding. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Chapel, casting rainbow patterns across the wooden pews and creating an atmosphere of quiet reverence. The small country church, nestled between rolling hills and ancient oak trees, had been the heart of this rural community for over a century. Today, it was dressed in white roses and baby's breath, transformed into a picture-perfect setting for what everyone expected to be the wedding of the year. Sarah Martinez sat in the very last pew, holding her 5-year-old daughter Emma close to her side. They had arrived early, hoping to find seats without drawing attention to themselves. Sarah wore her only good dress, a simple cream-colored sundress she had bought at a thrift store and carefully altered to fit properly. Emma wore a pink dress that Sarah had sewn herself, complete with small white flowers embroidered around the collar. They weren't exactly invited guests. Sarah had grown up in this town, had attended this very church as a child with her grandmother, but that felt like a lifetime ago, before she had moved to the city, before Emma was born, before the choices that had led her back here with nothing but hope and determination to build a better life for her daughter. The bride, Jennifer Walsh, had been Sarah's best friend in high school. They had lost touch over the years, but when Sarah returned to town 3 months ago, she had run into Jennifer at the grocery store. Jennifer had been kind, had asked about Emma, and had mentioned her upcoming wedding in passing. She hadn't exactly invited Sarah, but she hadn't not invited her either. It was one of those polite, vague conversations that could be interpreted different ways. Sarah had decided to interpret it as an invitation. She wanted Emma to see something beautiful, something hopeful. She wanted her daughter to witness love and celebration, to understand that good things could happen to good people. Most importantly, she had hoped to reconnect with old friends, to find her place again in the community, where she had once belonged. The church was filling up quickly with guests in expensive suits and designer dresses. Sarah recognized some faces. From her childhood, though, they looked right through her as if she were invisible. She had expected this. Small towns had long memories, and her story returning home as a single mother with no husband and few resources was exactly the kind of situation that made people uncomfortable. Emma was fascinated by everything around her. She pointed quietly at the flowers, whispered questions about the stained glass windows, and watched with wide eyes as the wedding party began to gather. Sarah had explained that they were here to witness a celebration, to see how beautiful weddings could be, and Emma had been excited for days about wearing her special dress. The ceremony was lovely. Jennifer looked radiant in her flowing white gown, and her groom Michael seemed genuinely happy as they exchanged vows. Sarah found herself tearing up during the ceremony, remembering her own dreams of a wedding like this, dreams that had taken a different path but had led her to Emma, which made everything worthwhile. It was after the ceremony ended that things went wrong. Dad's guests began filing out of the church to head to the reception. Sarah gathered Emma's small purse and prepared to leave quietly. She had no intention of going to the reception. That would have been presumptuous, but she was grateful they had been able to witness the ceremony. That's when Mrs. Patterson, the church secretary and unofficial guardian of social propriety, approached their pew. "Excuse me," she said in a voice that carried across the nearly empty church. "I don't believe you were on the guest list." Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. Several people who were still leaving turned to look, including some members of the wedding party. "I'm sorry," Sarah said quietly, standing up and taking Emma's hand. "We were just leaving. You shouldn't have been here in the first place." Mrs. Patterson continued, her voice growing louder. "This is a private ceremony for invited guests only, and frankly I'm not sure this is the appropriate environment for." She gestured vaguely at Emma, and Sarah understood immediately what she meant. A child born out of wedlock, a single mother, with no wedding ring, the kind of situation that some people in small towns still whispered about and judged harshly. Sarah felt tears stinging her eyes, but more than that, she felt angry. Angry that her daughter had to hear this, angry that people could be so cruel about a child, angry that she had been naive enough to think things might be different. "We're leaving," Sarah said firmly, scooping Emma up into her arms as her daughter looked confused and frightened by the adult tension. She didn't understand, but as Sarah walked toward the church exit, carrying Emma and fighting back tears, she heard footsteps behind her. A man's voice called out, calm but authoritative, "Mrs. Patterson, that's enough." Sarah turned to see a man in an elegant dark suit walking toward them from the front of the church. She recognized him vaguely. He had been sitting in the first row during the ceremony. Clearly someone important to the wedding party. He was tall, with kind eyes and an air of quiet confidence that immediately commanded attention. It was David Chen, though Sarah didn't know his name yet. He had been watching the entire interaction with growing disgust at Mrs. Patterson's behavior. "I'm sorry," he said to Sarah, his voice gentle. "That was completely inappropriate and unkind. Please, don't let one person's rudeness reflect on everyone." "Here," Mrs. Patterson sputtered indignantly. "Mr. Chen, this is a private ceremony, and as the person who paid for this entire wedding," David said quietly, "I think I have some say in who is welcome here." The remaining guests fell silent. Sarah stared at him in confusion, not understanding what was happening. David had met Jennifer through his company's charitable foundation. Her family had been struggling financially, and when she mentioned her dream of a church wedding, David had quietly arranged to cover all the expenses of the flowers, the reception, the photographer, everything. He believed in helping people celebrate life's important moments, especially those who couldn't afford to make their dreams come true. "You paid for the wedding?" Sarah asked, still holding Emma close. David nodded. "Jennifer is a remarkable young woman who works with our youth programs in the city. When she told me about her wedding plans and how much it meant to her to get married in a hometown church, I was happy to help make that happen." He turned to Mrs. Patterson, "And I specifically requested that this be a celebration open to anyone who wanted to witness to people making a commitment to love each other, especially families with children who need to see that love and hope are still possible in this world." Emma, who had been quietly listening to everything, suddenly perked up. "Are you a prince?" she asked David seriously. "Because you're dressed like a prince, and you're being nice to us like princes do in stories." David laughed, a warm sound that seemed to ease the tension in the room. "I'm not a prince," he said, "but I do think every little girl should feel like a princess at a wedding." He knelt down to Emma's eye level. "What's your name?" "Emma," she said shyly. "And this is my mama, Sarah." "Well, Emma and Sarah, would you like to come to the wedding reception? There's going to be cake and music and dancing. I think it would be a shame to waste those beautiful dresses." Sarah looked at him with wonder and gratitude. "We couldn't possibly." "You can, and you should," David said, standing up. "Everyone deserves to be part of celebrating love." As they walked together toward the reception, Emma skipping between them, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, the sense that she and her daughter were truly welcome somewhere, that they belonged. Later, as Emma danced with other children and Sarah found herself in conversation with genuinely kind people, she realized that sometimes the most beautiful thing about weddings wasn't the ceremony itself, it was discovering that there were still people in the world who believed that everyone deserved to witness and celebrate love.